You've probably heard of the Fermi Paradox, but many are not aware of all the moving parts, ideas, and theories behind it. Today, we will take a rather big jump into this thought provoking paradox. I'm going to bring in my co host, Jimmy Church of Fade to Black Radio. Jimmy, happy Thursday. And today is Thursday. We're not doing it
Yeah,
on a
it's
Wednesday.
Thursday. You were close that time too. That was good. That was good.
I
You were
said it
close.
really slow just to give
Yeah,
you the time that you
you're
needed.
you're getting close. People don't know. People don't know. We'll keep that a mystery. Welcome everyone. I've had a very busy week, and yesterday I'm so sunburned. I've just got itchy. That Palmdale made the top 10 list of the hottest cities in the United States.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it's very, and I ride every day, right? So you can see you can see where I wear my gloves. So yesterday I was out taping Cristina a show, and it was just so funny. Everybody made the comments, on this like, look at you. And what you see here is nothing compared to what it looks like, like in person. It's I'm I've changed my skin. So and I'm shedding. I'm just shedding and itching. Anyway, so if I do that during the show, I don't have parasites. I've got I'm reptilian. I'm shedding skin. So the Fermi paradox, one of the biggest subjects in the community, right? For sure. What were you doing this week that this popped up?
This one actually came up to me last night, just laying in bed before going to sleep, and I was just kind of thinking about this. And we've vaguely have covered the Fermi paradox before, but we
Mm-hmm.
haven't dedicated a full show to it. And I thought, when we talk about UFOs and aliens and UFO reports, people are always going to bring in this argument. And it's very important to look at and to think of all the mere possibilities of what could potentially be going on. And sometimes what certain scientists are considering as well, what they're thinking about, because that will, when we understand the counter argument, it will only benefit us, right? And it's important to see everything that we can in order to
Right.
make up our own minds on what we truly think is going on. Because, like you said, Jimmy, so many shows ago, is that not everyone has all the answers. No one really has any of the answers, but we can speculate on these things. And it's important to speculate and to talk about the Fermi paradox as well.
There's a few great references out there that people can turn to, because it's an impossible thing to cover in an hour on the show. It's impossible, and there's a reason for that. Isaac Arthur, if you go to his YouTube channel, which is fantastic, you go to his YouTube channel, and he has got multiple shows on the Fermi paradox. And he did an excellent, about 3 years ago. He's done many more since. 4-part, 4 episodes on the Fermi paradox, posing 4 different viewpoints, listing 50 answers to each question,
Yeah.
50, 70 answers. And I've got probably a half a dozen books on the Fermi paradox, and quite often, and you can just go to Amazon or go to Audible, and I think I have 4 Audible books on the Fermi paradox that are literally 5, 6, 700 pages, uh going through 50, 60, 70 different answers to each individual question. And I have the basic questions here listed. Well, actually, before we get into the Fermi paradox, let's look at, and then I'll hand it over to you. You can tell us what the Fermi paradox is. But the 5 basic scenarios that we have the most popular, number one, the most popular and accepted answer is ET's already here. All right. By far and away, the most popular answer to this, ET's already here. Number two, ET is out there in the universe, but hasn't gotten here yet. Okay. Number three, ET is out there, but hasn't sent us a message. Number four, ET was there, but isn't now. And then number five, the most daunting, there is no ET. We are all there is. We're alone in the universe. So those are the five basic breakdowns of ways to approach the Fermi paradox. Cristina, what is the Fermi paradox?
It's the question that Fermi had provided to his friends in the 1950s of where is everyone, or where are they? Where are these extraterrestrials? And this question really pointed out the discrepancy between the high probability of the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations and the lack of any observable evidence, such as radio transmissions, probes, or spacecraft. This is rather important to mention because, and I have an image of him, but Dr. Fermi, right here, by the name of Enrico Fermi. He was Italian, but did do a lot of his work in the United States. He did help with the Manhattan Project, which developed the first atomic bombs, and he was present at the Trinity test, looking at how those explosions really went out. Now, there are rumors and theories and ideas that during the Manhattan Project, UFOs were seen observing
Good.
the situation. Now,
That's right.
if only Mr. Fermi here, Dr. Fermi, were to have seen this with his own eyes, then I could completely understand this mindset that he had looking into this. However, this conversation that he had with his friends wasn't prevalent until the year 1950, 1951. And the Manhattan Project was a little prior to that. So that's just something that I wanted to put out there that caught my interest. But the really what it is asking the question, where is everybody?
Yeah, and so it's become folklore, right? It's it's become a part of pop culture, the Fermi paradox and how it happened. And the story goes, the basic story. There are some variations to it, but him and his buddies, they're all at Los Alamos, and they're walking to lunch. They're going to the cafeteria, and in 1950. And in 1950, the huge amount of UFO sightings and things that were going on all across the country, headline news, reports, this, that, photography, everything was happening. And so they were having a conversation about flying saucers. And he was with Edward Teller, another very, very prominent physicist. Again, all around. This is at Los Alamos, so you have the Manhattan Project, and of course, that had happened in Trinity, and the further development of nuclear weapons and nuclear research. And Herbert York was with him, and Emil Konopinski, and all leading physicists at the time. And while walking to lunch, they're talking about flying saucers and the possibility of faster than light travel and how this could be happening and how they would get here. And so the conversation was like, all of these reports, all of these sightings, everything is going on, the military, everything is involved. And if this is happening, uh, if there's all this life out there, if the universe is that big and all of the stars and the possibility of planets, then we should be in full contact. Where is everybody? And he yelled this out, and this was heard uh, by a bunch of people that were there. Now, the exact quote, right, is still in dispute, but there are a lot of witnesses, and now this has become a part of history. And the Fermi paradox, when it evolved into what we call today the Fermi paradox, has so many thought experiments applied to it, so many different views and so many different viewpoints. And of course, because of the Fermi paradox, Frank Drake, the founder of SETI, devised the Drake equation, which wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the Fermi paradox and the discussion that was happening amongst the leading scientists and physicists of the time. So that's where we are today. Let's start here. I'm going to throw this to you, Cristina. If we go, if your answer to the Fermi paradox, where is everybody? What's the first thing that pops in your head?
I guess not only in my head, but even for Fermi himself, he later thought, what if they're already here and they're hiding? And it's actually one of the theories that you pointed out as well, because looking at, let's just say 1947 into the 1950s, that's when the conversation of UFOs was becoming very prevalent, aliens as well, alien visitation. And when we consider that as a possibility of what if they've always been here, like how our ancestors across cultures have told the generations, that would be a rather compelling idea just to consider, and yet we haven't seen them for several reasons. Could it be because they're scared of humanity? They need to protect themselves? Is it something else entirely? Are they not allowed to interact with us anymore, like how they were able to a few thousand years ago or a few hundred years ago? That is one idea that seems to be pretty prevalent in people's minds when they consider the Fermi paradox. But as for yourself, Jimmy, which one sticks with you the most, or that you think
Well,
of first?
yeah, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Would Fermi say the same thing today? Okay. Now, I understand 1950, and you have to look at their viewpoint and what they were considering. They were looking at metallic flying saucers with little green men in them, and pilots, and the vastness of space and the distance between stars and star systems and galaxies. So they were considering a more mechanical viewpoint of this, and they had to apply the thought, if they're getting here, then they would have to be traveling faster than the speed of light, which goes against Einstein's principles that he has laid out. Nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. And if they're getting here, then they have conquered that. But they were looking at and considering nuts and bolts, rivets, metallic craft traveling for tens of thousands, if not millions of years across the universe to get to this planet. Today, with our understanding of physics and other considerations to apply to this, we know that there are many possibilities of not only space travel, but the lack of space travel. You know, you would not travel across space, you would just appear at one point to another, and you wouldn't spend time traveling in between stars and star systems and galaxies. So you have to look at it that way. Would Fermi ask the same question today? Because for them, especially at that time, there was a general lack of evidence. They considered a lack of, real, pure, conclusive evidence of any advanced extraterrestrial life. And today it's simply not that kind of party. I think that there is a lot of evidence today, not only for our community, but for scientists and physicists themselves. There is a lot of stuff to look at today. And we have not only video and eyewitness testimony and imagery, but we have the scientific collection of data, certainly with things like the James Webb Space Telescope and the radio telescopes that we have today, and the ability to look at atmospheres of other planets and search for life, and our now general understanding that not only Fermi and Edward Teller and Frank Drake, the evidence that they didn't have 60, 70 years ago, which is every star that you can see, every star in the universe, every star in every galaxy, a number that is so big we don't understand how large it is, has at least one planet. But back then, Fermi and everybody else just assumed that planets were rare and that Earth was the rarest of the rare. Now we know that's the exact opposite is the case. It's absolutely common to have planets everywhere.
That's a really interesting point to make. And then we can also bring in the quarantine theory as it's another angle, because we might be in quarantine. I mean, is another, like, that's another thing that I
Right.
that I consider and that I think about, that are we under some law like in Star Trek with the Prime Directive, keeping non-spacefaring species or non-warp travel enabled civilizations in a contact quarantine? That's something that I consider rather often, and Star Trek does help with that. Of course, as I just finished watching the latest season of Discovery, which I enjoyed. But when we look at it from that perspective, the idea of the Prime Directive, or even pushing that aside just for a moment, even just considering how violent we are with one another, why would another intelligent species want to interact with us? Also, how would a type 1 through 3 civilization on the Kardashev scale communicate with others of equal tech along vast distances? I mean, we're listening from primitive and rather slow radio signals. But what about communication via quantum entangled atoms? Could like could it be that there is just this kind of network of calm servers throughout the universe being used for instantaneous communication? And so I think that we just might be a bit behind the curve on how we're attempting to listen to space, attempting to listen to these other planets that we might consider might have life on it. Are we just behind with our technology? Are we just too primitive here?
Oh, okay. That is a really, really, really great point. And let's stay there for a second and expand on it. It just may be that we have, and I've talked to the principals that are doing this work myself personally, that, and the point that I bring up to all of them, and it makes them, I'll get to the point in a second, but it makes them think. Okay, so let's assume something, that they are reaching out to us all the time, and we have stuff and signals and transmissions that are pointed directly at this planet, but we don't know how to read it, detect it. What if it's sent in a different time scale? What, that their existence operates differently than we do here, and we just don't have the ability to detect it. And if we do, we ignore it because we don't recognize it or see it for what it is. Now, I think that's a very, very, very important point. We have to assume that we can decode and understand an extraterrestrial signal that originated off of this planet and outside of this solar system. How can we just so safely go and assume something like that and flip it over? Us sending signals out, which we have been doing for a very long time. And if we just look at the 100 years, let's just go with 100 years. That's long. It's more like 150, but 100 years that stuff has been shooting away from Earth. Okay. And any extraterrestrial life out there that would receive a television broadcast, a radio broadcast, would have to know what it is, and then the ability to unscramble that and turn it into something that they can understand. Right? We're transmitting, we know what we're sending. We have TVs and radios that receive those signals, and we know what we're doing. Right? But when you're going in the opposite direction, you're assuming that ET has the ability to encode and decode these transmissions. And it's the same thing for us receiving or looking for theirs. How do we know what equipment it's being sent in, what language, what frequency, what is it? And again, the time scale. What if they are sending or they are receiving? We send them a signal, from Earth, and it's running at literally 1,000 times or 1,000,000 times slower than they operate. Right? Right? They would have to know everything about us to slow it down or speed it up and get into the right frequency, the right computer language, and everything else to decode something and understand it. The only thing that anybody can assume, and that includes us receiving or them receiving, is that it's not natural, that it's not a natural occurrence from a pulsar, from a quasar, a fast radio burst. And these are all the things that complicate it and get to the part of, why haven't we heard anything? Well, we probably have stuff to listen to. We don't have the ability to understand it.
Or maybe they didn't like the Beatles song that was attached to the golden record that was sent, which is now in the Kuiper belt. But in all seriousness, I want to get onto that just for a moment. What do you think about us launching the golden record back in 1977? Do you think it was a good idea at the time to place information, music, languages, and a few other pieces of information for someone to attempt and capture? Does that seem too primitive? When you heard about it for the first time, what did you think of it?
Well, I think we should do more of it. Right? What did we just send to Venus? Missy Elliott's song, right? And the first hip hop broadcast into deep space. I thought it was an interesting choice of music from NASA and an interesting planet to beam it to. And it kind of got lost in the media, but that was very interesting. The not only the choice of music, but why Venus, right? But I don't have a problem with that, like Stephen Hawking did. Don't let anybody know that we're here, because we don't know who we're revealing ourselves to. Now, it may be the same situation as we look at the Fermi Paradox, that type 1, type 2, type 3 civilization may want to keep to themselves. Right. And there's another part to this where there was an article that was written back in 2015, And when that article came out, and I thought that it was pretty interesting, and I talked about it back then, and it was um, uh, pointing out that if life is so easy, and I believe that it is, I think life is easy. You can't. We've tried to stop it here on Earth. We've had what, five, six mass extinction events, and we rebounded quickly. And here we are today, you and I broadcasting, right? We can't stop life here on Earth. So if life is so easy, someone from somewhere must have come calling by now. And I get that. I totally understand that. But we are doing the same things. We are reaching out. So I think that the record is a good idea. I think that beaming out messages, and I think that, what do they call it? Active SETI, which is sending out, right, messages into deep space. It's better than not doing it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay. But how do you, back to my point, how do you send something out that they can understand? That gold record and the instructions on how to play it in a very primitive way is a really good idea. But because Christina, and I point this out all the time, right? Here is here's a USB drive. Okay? What's on this USB drive? Video. There's video on this drive, right? Of humans, of Earth. There's music on this drive. There's data on this drive. But unless you know what this is or how to encode and decode and play it back and view it, this is just metal and plastic, right? You understand what I'm saying? You have to have the ability to understand. So that gold record with the instructions on how to play it back in a very primitive way is a good thing. Otherwise, it's just a gold disc with grooves on it, right? They wouldn't know what to do with it. So you have to tell them. If we sent this into deep space, we would have to have a very complex description on Windows software, right? Encoders, what an MP3 is, right? An MP4 player and a video monitor and screen rates, right? You would have to do all of that. And it's the same thing. This can be transmitted. We know that. We receive it all the time. You can watch movies on your stream movies on your cell phone. So we have the ability to stream that. If ET was streaming it, we would have to understand everything in that stream to decode it. It was encoded to stream it out, to decode it, to view it. And that's I think that's a very, 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 very big issue, and one that people choose to ignore.
I think you're right there. It's the same analogy that you brought up. I believe it was last week, where if archaeologists a million years in the future were to find a CD or
Mm-hmm.
a cassette player, what what would it mean to them if they had lost all the records, all the human records to describe those artifacts? You're providing a very similar analogy, and when you place it in such simple terms, it makes it a lot easier to rationalize and understand from the perspective that you are attempting to provide. And Decker, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. To move on here with another rather popular hypothesis is the zoo hypothesis, where Earth is part of this galactic zoo where advanced civilizations observe us without direct interaction. And so they avoid contact to allow natural developments without interference. This is almost similar and not entirely the same, but similar to people thinking that we're just merely a farm, right? Where these alien abductions are allowed to happen, people are allowed to go missing in order for XYZ, right? harvesting, the hybridization program, and who knows whatever else. It kind of falls into the category, but it can also fall out of it depending on your perspective. But looking at this zoo hypothesis, Jimmy, do you think that we're a good tourist destination?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, well, okay. For us,
True.
if we have evolved on this planet to live in certain temperate environments, whether it's cold or medium or hot or whatever, we have adapted to it. Clothing, oxygen, the way that we breathe, the way that we have evolved, not only us personally, but that's plants and animals and all the other life here, right? With the gravity that we have and our distance from the sun, day and night, and our 24-hour cycle, and then the yearly cycle, we have evolved with that. But what if ET is from a planet that has half of the gravity, twice the amount of gravity, 10 times the amount of gravity, twice the temperature? But what if they're on twice as hot? What if they have evolved on a frozen world? And so their body and adapting here to come by, well, we have to wear spacesuits, right, for the moon, and would definitely be wearing spacesuits on Mars. And ET, unless their planet is identical to Earth, they would have to arrive equipped and ready to prepare for our planet. So, would it be a good vacation destination? Only if their planet is identical, so they could walk on the beach barefooted, right? Their planet would have to be identical. Otherwise, is Mars a great vacation destination for Earthlings? No, that would suck. It'd be worse. It'd be worse than Vegas. So you have to look at it that way. Now, back to your point, though. Let's go back to this. The prime directive zoo way to look at this. There probably is only one real way to look at ET, an advanced version of ET that is out exploring the universe, which is what we're attempting to do now. And that is, there's a lot of planets, a lot. There is a lot of galaxies. There is a lot to explore. There's a lot to see. There's a lot to catalog and check in on. So no matter what, you go by and you cruise by a planet and you have unevolved or evolving ape tribes, right? Do you stop on that planet and help them along, or which would take time, or do you just merely take your scientific notes, log it in, give the planet a number, it's in the catalog, their current point in evolution, and then you move on to the next planet? That's what they do in Star Trek. How many times have you seen in Star Trek? And it's such a great analogy, a great comparison. It's a great barometer to look at Earth. It is Star Trek. What do they say? Okay, we're approaching an uncharted world, right? Right? Uncharted. So they've got to. What are they doing? Uncharted. They don't know anything about the planet, so they're going to give the planet a number. What do? They take an analysis of the atmosphere. They're looking for life on the planet. They're doing all of this stuff as they approach it, right? And that's exactly what ET has to be doing out there if they are in interstellar, interplanetary, interstellar traveling advanced civilization. There's too much to explore. There's too much to map. There's too much to go and see. It's
Well, I guess,
infinite.
well, in the perspective of a human lifetime, that's anywhere from 80 75 to 80 years, then yes, it's nearly impossible. It's infinite. But if you were to have a lifespan that exceeds maybe a few thousand years, it might be a different possibility. Maybe you'd be
That
instead of
argument's been that
traveling.
That's right. That's right. Christina, that argument has been put out there, and it's one that you have to consider. Okay. And that is, and it's been put out there. Kardashev talked about this a lot. Um, and others. It just takes too much time to go into this deeply. But that the figures have been presented. Um, how fast an advanced civilization could colonize a galaxy. That
Something
once
that I've been thinking about, Jimmy, is that what if civilizations are civilized and more intelligent because of their lifespans? I feel like 80 years or less, 70, just isn't enough time to fully adapt and mature. But being a few hundred years, if not a few thousand, I think that definitely probably benefits a civilization. But Dan here wants to bring up something referring to your point a little bit earlier. It says, who has the tech to receive messages and would they make the public aware? Thank you, Dan. What do you think about that, Jimmy?
Well, Seth Shostak, who I had on the show last week or 2 weeks ago, we discussed that point directly, and both versions of that point. How would you know if you were receiving a message? That's the first thing, right? How would you know? And if you did absolutely concretely confirm that you had an alien message, would you let the public be aware of it? And he said, and this is his answer. You got to remember who he is in his position. He said, Jimmy, this is my life. I've chosen this path. I want to be the guy that gets the message and tells the world. I want to be that person. So, but I bring up the question, the real one. Would the government step in, right? Like the movie Contact, right? They want to close this thing down and take control over the message and this knowledge of life outside of Earth. And would somebody come in? I've asked Avi Loeb the same question, both publicly and privately, and others that are doing this research. Is it possible that the government would step in between and take control of your discovery? Avi says no. The team, the international teams at the James Webb Space Telescope all say the same thing. This is an international effort. There's no way you could keep that concealed. This isn't the James Webb Space Telescope is not United States. It's an international coalition of partners and teams that utilize the James Webb Space Telescope. You couldn't keep it a secret. Seth Shostak says the same thing, that no, the government would not come in, and that if it did happen and it was for real, that it would just go public. And Seth also said, and it's the same thing with the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's the same thing with Avi Loeb. That's just three examples, by the way, and three different approaches to what is going on. SETI is connected to all of the observatories, or most of them, around the world. And these astronomers and these astrophysicists, Christina, they're all talking to each other. They all pick up the phone. Hey, man, we got something. Check this out. And remember, the Earth is rotating, right? So you have a radio telescope here picking up something, but as the Earth turns, it loses the signal. So what do you got to do? You got to call your buddies over in Australia, right, and get them online, and call your friends in Argentina. Call your right. Let's get a hold of the United Kingdom, and the everybody. You couldn't keep it a secret, and it's the same thing with Avi Loeb with his coalition of partners that he's got put together, he just feels that no, there's no way you could close it down. And if they attempted to, there'd be too many leaks in the dike. You couldn't plug all the holes. You'd be running around like a chicken with your head cut off. There's too many people that are involved with these projects. But then there's the second part to this before we run out of time, and we've got 3, 4, and 5 to look at here. What if there is life, but ET just hasn't gotten here yet? That's the other thing. Is that something to consider with all of the data that we have here today? Is number 2 something to consider now?
Looking at it from how vast our universe is and how far the nearest planet is next to Earth, I can understand that being a possibility, but that's only if we are applying our terrestrial technology to these other
Correct.
civilizations that are able
Correct.
to actually traverse the stars.
Bingo.
If they are able to harness exotic matter of some kind or some kind of warp drive, then it's a different ball game altogether. But at the same time, what makes us special? There are probably so many other planets that have some form of life, have it be intelligent or not. They got a lot of stops to make. It's the same thing as how humans have a bucket list. They want to stop at all these different tourist locations, all these different countries and towns, but they only have so much time to do it and so many resources to do it. Are we allowed to apply that same ideology to other entities that are actually able to traverse the stars?
Yeah. And so I take 2 off the list.
Okay.
And I'll argue with any physicists out there about this. Way, way, way too much evidence, piles of it, that ET is already here, has been here, and continues to visit this planet. So that's it. I take 2 off the list. When I say they, I'll talk about a guy like Neil deGrasse Tyson. Number 2 is they're out. That's their get out of jail free card. Universe is a big place. Of course, there's a lot of life out here, but ET just hasn't gotten here yet.
And we're
That's
not
their
playing
out
Monopoly.
card. Yeah, that's their out card. That's their get out of jail free card. I take it completely off the list. I have witnessed too much stuff myself personally, and everything else that has gone on, certainly in modern history in the last 70, 80 years since World War II. Forget about deep history, just right now, our modern history and media and the recording of events, there's way too much evidence that says ET is here and continues to be here. So I take number 2 off the list. But let's get to 2 other important points before we close this out. And they're probably the biggest. If ET isn't sending us signals, if ET is not visiting us and they're out there, but they're completely advanced and they have interstellar capabilities, but maybe they have internal stuff that they are dealing with. Resources, population is too big, food, all of those considerations that they don't want to share, and they don't want other visitations from other alien and advanced ET civilizations to visit them, and they just want to keep to themselves. And that may be a big, big, big possibility because they know what we know, that we are in danger right now on this planet of eliminating ourselves. And that's not even with nuclear war. And that's a possibility. But what if we run out of enough water? What if climate change or whatever is going on? What if we heat this planet to the point where, and it's only a few more degrees, we burn up and things evaporate, and the seas and the ocean and the fresh water deoxidize, and no oxygen is left, and plant life goes away, and we just burn out. We just achieve our place in evolution. It's just a natural, right? The thinning of the herd, right? And ET is going through those same things. And there's a possibility that ET was there, but they're not there now. And the signals that we're sending out, Christina, right? And they get to an advanced civilization in 1,000 years, and we haven't been on this planet for 900. And they come out and they visit, they see where the signals are coming from, and they get here and it's gray dust, right? We look like the moon. I'm not trying to be grim here. I'm saying that if we're going through this now, then any advanced civilization out there would have to have gone through the same thing and the same challenges. So maybe ET was there, but isn't now. That's a possibility, right?
And we could also maybe apply that to these other civilizations that might be visiting Earth, is that they have left their planet that's on the verge of death. And they're
Or
looking
died,
for
or
their
died.
own, or
Right.
died, and they're looking for their own habitable world that they
Because
will be able to create their civilization on.
we're going to do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
We eventually on this planet, again, I'm not being grim, but eventually we have to leave. We have to leave. We can't stay here. Our sun is going to fry this into a big chunk of coal. Okay, it's just the natural way of things. So before all of that instability happens, we will have devised and built interstellar starships, put ours all 8 billion people or whoever's left at that time on those ships, and head out and go and look for a place to live. The same thing could happen here. Absolutely, Christina. Yeah, yeah. I don't discount that. And if we receive a radio signal from a planetary system that is, 10,000 light years away, and that signal arrives here and we see it, and we go and look at that planet, is that planet even still there? What is the status of it? So all of these things are something to consider.
It really is. And FB, thank you for that. Something else that maybe on our side that we're doing wrong is that our search strategy is wrong. They're all there.
Okay,
They're
okay.
all ready.
What was that? What was that? Is that poltergeist? What was it? It was loud.
My little figurine fell.
How?
Because I moved my desk. But don't get me distracted, Jimmy. Don't get me distracted. Okay.
It was cool though. It was cool. It was loud.
Looking at the
Everybody
search
heard it.
strategy. Yeah, I'm sorry, everybody, to distract you. But looking at these using radio signals and all this stuff, what if we're just not using the right technology, as you had mentioned earlier, and then Dan had also touched on that as well. So what if, just to build on that just for a moment here, we've heard from ancient stories, ancient texts, that we have been helped by a more intelligent civilization of some kind, and that they have helped us with agriculture, with writing, with medicine. What if they could do the same with allowing us to better understand their technology, or even how to create signals or understand and decipher signals from other civilizations and entities, maybe when they deem that we are ready? So, that alone, do you think right here, right now in 2024, do you think we are ready to have contact and interaction with entities?
We have we have 90% of our brain unused. Nature gave us our brains. At one point, we used all of it, believe it or not. Why evolve a brain that you don't use? No. We used it at one point. And past civilizations and that ET contact and everything that you're referring to, just imagine the power of the mind and consciousness and everything else that we could access and move stuff, right? Whatever. And that's what ET would show us. I keep repeating myself. If ET's not going to come here and save us and get rid of pollution and climate change and cure cancer and give us infinite life, ET's going to show up and go, okay, it's all about this, bro. Right? And you need to get this activated again. We're going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to split. We'll check in with you later. And I think that's where it's at. I really, truly believe, I mean, in my very soul, that is the case. Consciousness is the key. It's not going to be technology. ET showing us how to travel faster than light. It's the old saying, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach him to drink, right? Well, it's the same thing. So ET shows us how to access the rest of our brain and then leaves it to us. And that's the prime directive in the okay zone. Okay? Right? Not teaching us or showing us some advanced technology that we don't understand. No. Give us the gift of how to get to that point, which is using the rest of our cranium. And that
would
just
be
leave
exciting.
us alone. Yeah. Yeah, wouldn't that be
I,
great?
yes, I'm ready to be a Jedi. I wanna
That's
I
it.
wanna
That's
have
it. How to be a
telekinesis
Jedi.
so bad.
Yeah. It's so funny how we can look at not only Star Trek but Star Wars and these different concepts that have been laid out in all of the great science fiction out there. But that's one of them. Is something like the Force or telepathy and conscious control of things.
Right.
That would just be so exciting. Now, let's close with this: the grimmest of the grim. There is no ET.
Dun dun
We're alone.
dun.
Yeah, we're alone. We are all there is. That's a bummer, isn't it? Is it?
There was a quote, and I can't remember who it was from, but it was from a scientist of, if we are alone in the universe, it's just as scary as not being the only ones in the
That was
universe. Either
Arthur C. Clarke, I think,
was
said
it?
that.
You're
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
smart, Jimmy.
I think it could have been Carl Sagan, but all of those big brains are considering the one daunting question, and if we are alone, if we are all there is in the vastness of everything, that would just suck.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about
Okay,
a
hold on.
claustrophobic feeling of
Well,
just we are all there is.
uh, and I would like to just go a little deeper on that. Why do you think it would suck? Why does it matter if we are the only ones in the universe or not?
Because we have the possibility, we have a very high chance of destroying ourselves. And if we do, then the memory and the history of this planet goes away too. And nobody would ever know because there's no other life out there. That's dark. Why would we want that? or even want to ponder that or consider that. No. And it doesn't give you a reason. It doesn't give you hope. It doesn't give you hope. Why does everybody want to get up the next day? Why do you look forward to the next day? Because of the possibilities and what could happen and the changes that you can make in your life and the changes that could happen in your community or the changes that could happen globally in the world. That's why we get up the next day. If we are alone in the universe, there's no reason to get up. There's no reason to pay your bills. There's no reason to do anything. That's it. That's it. There's no reason. So that's it. You just party. Just party, man. Just party. That's all you do. Let's just burn this thing to the ground. There's no reason to. That's the dark part. If you take away that hope, if you give that hope to the world, there's life out there, and now there's a reason to keep this place clean. You want, when people come to visit, you want your house clean. There's a reason to keep it clean. There's a reason to behave. There's a reason to exist, and there's a reason to make sure that we have a future for our children and grandchildren and everything else. You give us hope for the future. That's why it is so important to have this ET discussion and contact and who is visiting us, because it gives us hope. The opposite, there's no reason. There's no reason. Burn it down. Just burn it down. Just to quote Prince, right? Party like it's 1999. That's what that's what I would do.
I think
And I'm
I
not
only
being
now
cavalier.
understand that reference with
I'm not
Prince.
I'm not being cavalier. I am not. You really want to freak this planet out? You want people to really lose their minds? You want anarchy in the streets? Tell the world that there's no reason to exist, that there's no life out there, and we are all there is. That's it. You want everybody to lose their minds? Tell them that. You want hope for the future? You want to have a reason to coexist and to just keep this place beautiful and sparkling and look to the future? Make the announcement. We're not alone in the universe, and we've got ET brothers and sisters out there. That changes the scope of everything, and a completely new worldview for everybody and our future generations.
What a beautiful way to end today's show. We were going on an emotional roller coaster today, but ending it on a high note. Jimmy, thank you so much for doing today's show with me today. Who do you have on Fade to Black?
Tonight's an AMA, AJA. We were supposed to have Daryl Sims on tonight, the alien hunter, but he's got weather issues in Texas, and his internet has been out for 24 hours and didn't come back today. So we shifted. Tomorrow was supposed to be the AMA AJA Special Friday edition. We moved that to tonight. We've moved Daryl to tomorrow, hoping that he's going to have his internet back tomorrow night. So tonight's going to be an AJA AMA, one of my funnest, favorite things to do on the show. So I'll see everybody tonight for that. Cristina, another great show. You're the best. Everybody out there, thank you. I'll see you tonight on Fade to Black.
Thank you. That was such a fun show, mainly because we were able just to do a deeper dive into the Fermi Paradox, what's going on, all the possibilities, and how some of these theories just seem like straw men. It really does. Like, for instance, the last one that we covered, that we're the only things that are here in the universe. I know you're not buying it. And for myself, not that much either. If you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below and subscribe, as tomorrow will be weekly strangest news of the week. That will be live. You do not want to miss it, as I'll be covering all the strange news and mysterious headlines from around the world. Before you head out, scan this QR code. It'll take you to all of my social media links, and I do write articles for all of the shows right here. That is it for today. I will see you tomorrow. be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies. If you enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.